Welcome to another episode of the Nintendo Powercast. I'm your host, N64 Josh. For episode 493, I've got none other than Thunderstache Gaming. What's going on?
What's up? Happy to be here. A lot of exciting things to talk about, a lot going on in the world of Nintendo as we wait patiently for
Yes.
Switch 2. There is actually quite a bit of very interesting news going around. So a lot of good topics today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to jump in. Before we do, I want to let you guys know Elgato's having a huge sale. Both of us are currently staring into the Elgato prompter right now. So if you're wondering why we are staring into your souls, well, it's because we are literally looking right at the camera with the screen right here. So they're having a great sale on that product. Especially if you do any kind of scripting for videos that you make, this thing is an absolute must. If you stream, especially if you mainly stream on Twitch, they have Twitch chat built into this thing. And so it's just amazing. I've been streaming where I have TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch all on all the chats right into the camera. And so it's been absolutely fantastic. So head on over to n64josh.com/Elgato. My coupon code does not work with these sales. You can't stack them up because everything's already got such big discounts. And go check this stuff out, guys. There's so much, from stream decks to microphones to arms. I mean, lighting, everything in between. The prompter right now, not only do you get it on sale, but you get it with the hot shoe and a mini light. So you're talking an incredible deal right now. So highly suggest checking that one out. Again, n64josh.com/Elgato. And we are going to jump into our first topic.
Yeah, if you don't mind me adding, I will say that I have the Stream Deck.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Facecam Pro.
Yeah.
I have the prompter. And I have the HD60X capture card.
Yep.
All from Elgato. Didn't know anything about them when I first got into this, did my research, decided to go with them. Bought one product at a time, but with each product, I was just like, man, this stuff works so good. And so I continued to buy their products. And I will say, honestly, I have nothing to do with them. I don't make anything off of Elgato, but I will say that I always recommend their products.
Yeah.
They're great. So if you are interested, go use Josh's link.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, too, if you're thinking about just getting started and you want something a little more budget-friendly, they have their whole Neo series. It's got capture cards, microphones, cameras, lighting, everything. So, but again, some of the stuff is so deeply discounted right now, up to like 30% off some of this stuff. Like, it's an absolute steal, and I couldn't be happier. So, well, with that, let's jump into our first topic. Well, one of the big rumors this week, and again, grain of salt, this is more like a speculation. What do we think is going to happen here? But there's a few different things pointing towards a January announcement with a March release. And I mean, the amount of videos that I've seen go up on this, and checking out the Games and Leaks subreddit as well, like there's a lot of things pointing to this, and so I figure let's talk about it. It seems a little bit unprecedented for them to do such a short marketing push, like, you know. I quoted one of Nintendo Prime's tweets because he's like, this is like, it's only like a 3-month thing. I'm like, except we've known about this thing for like almost over 3 quarters now, as far as the fiscal year, right? And so what do you think about this potential rumor of a March release and a January announcement?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I have seen so many videos as well. And I know a lot of people are absolutely scoffing at the idea of a January reveal and March release. But I'm not scoffing at it at all. So I look at a couple things, right? First is that So Switch 1, that was announced in October 2016, right?
Yep.
The big reveal was January, the big
Correct.
party,
Yep.
and then it released in March.
Hmm.
We don't need a big reveal. This is the Switch 2.
Correct.
It's iterative. We're not going to something completely different. We're not going from, a three-pronged Nintendo 64 controller to the GameCube controller, from the GameCube controller to now a Wii motion remote. What's there to explain outside of the new benefits? So that's kind of where I started off with here, is that we don't need that big reveal. So you could you could literally use the Switch 1 schedule. Get rid of October, do the big reveal in January, release it in March. Now there's a lot of factors I kind of put in this. First and being is that the world we live in now, it continues to change. And I think now more than ever, we live in a world of instant gratification. People wanted the Switch 2 yesterday. They wanted it last year. We thought it would be coming this year at the latest. So if Nintendo were ever in a position to take advantage of a short announce to release window, it's right now. Nobody needs to be sold on what a Switch is. We know what it is. When you have a short announce to release window like January to March, I think it causes the Switch 2 to stay on the top of consumers' minds and forces them right now to make a decision, because it's coming out in 2 months. You don't have to sit around and think about it for months of whether or not you're going to get it. You're going to decide right now when they do their big announcement and they tell you what the launch games are going to be and what the price is. So I look at it in that way as well. And you really decide right then and there if you're going to pre-order it or not, or you're going to be asking for it for your birthday. If you're younger person, maybe you're not working yet. Christmas, you're making that decision right now at the beginning of the year. You're setting it up. You're like, hey, I'm either getting it at launch or I'm getting it for either a birthday or Christmas. I'm going to be asking for it.
Mm.
And as you know, an early launch allows Nintendo to essentially have 2 launches in the same fiscal year, with the launch day release. All the hardcore gamers, hardcore Nintendo fans. And then you have your first Christmas on the market, which is essentially like a second launch. Your first holiday on the market's always going to be massive. So this gives Nintendo the opportunity to prop up their big launch day games and then have a second round of big launch games to release in November, which will be, of course, when a lot of the more casual gamers pick up the Switch 2. So for the mass majority, that first major Christmas is actually like their own launch day for the Switch 2. So you release it in March. All of us early adopters, the hardcore fans, we talk about it the whole year. We're talking about it on podcasts. We're reviewing games. Word of mouth advertising, word of mouth hype. It's only going to strengthen that first year, that first Christmas on the market. So that's the first thing I look at. What do you think about that?
Well, where my mind is immediately going is thinking about that first year of Switch. And and I'm just going off the top of my head, so by all means, guys, correct me in the comments if I'm incorrect here, but Splatoon 2 had its own console. Odyssey had its own console with the red Joy-Con. I believe Let's Go was the first year, but it could have been the second. So I can't remember off the top of my head. But kind of like you're saying, those when you put those things together, where you're not only having Christmas as essentially a second, or holiday as a second launch, you've also got collectors that are out getting their hands on these new consoles, even in the first year,
Yeah.
right? Picking up a secondary console. I mean, for me, it was I didn't go with Odyssey, but I did go with Smash when that console released. I was like, I have to have this. Like, it's it's just I need this in my collection. There's no question. But the other thing about a March release, especially in the States, is it's tax return time. And if you have kids, there's a much better chance you're getting a tax return anyway. And this is a family product, you know. And
Great
so,
point.
and I don't know if you have noticed, but over the past few years, February, March, oftentimes we see some bigger releases coming out around those times. And I don't know if they correlate or not, but I've always kind of, because I mean, again, doing a Nintendo show for so long, and having people write in about playing with their kids and everything, and hearing people talk about, oh, my tax return's going to, these games or this console or whatever the case may be. I mean, we've probably all heard this conversation, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, well, there's a good opportunity for people to be able to make a relatively large investment in a console during that time, if that extra cash is there. I mean, I mean, I have 4 kids, so come tax season, it was like, what big purchase am I going to make right now, because it's not going to be too taxing on the wallet. And having the Switch 2 available, and from the sounds of it, the way the production is going, they want to have so many out there
Yeah.
that it's not going to be an issue of trying to find it or having to pay inflated prices, because they want to get it in the hands of the consumer that wants it day one right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a great point about the tax returns. And the retail cycle peaks in November. So so the peak of the retail cycle is Black Friday. The Black Friday shopping and the Cyber Monday. And then it very much goes to sleep. There's not a lot of buying late in December. We all know that video games, especially, you look at the games that release in December, that always spells trouble, unless you're Smash Brothers, right? Because again, Nintendo's done that.
Or
But
Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
or Xeno, yeah. But we know that most games that release in December, they get forgotten about. They don't do as well. Look at Avatar by Ubisoft the other year. They decided to test their luck at releasing a game in December, and it did horribly, horribly, massively undersold. That the retail spending rebounds in March. It really goes to sleep, as you know, in January and February.
Yeah.
Everyone is totally spent, literally and figuratively. They don't want to go out and go shopping.
Right.
They don't want to deal with any of that. It's almost like retail spending is in hibernation and recovery mode for January, February. But March is always when it comes out. So, what better way, right, to release your console again in March when spending recovers? That's when everyone's going to go out and spend. So, if you look at almost just that idea that everyone's ready to spend again in March, you want to be the first one there to say, "Hey, here's something to buy. You can put your money right here." And again, by doing that, you get the 2 launches. So you get them at the beginning of the retail sales awakening in March, and then you get them again at the peak in November when everyone's asking for a Switch, when you decide to release your other big titles, right? Because Nintendo's launch windows, they've always said, are 6 to 9 months. That's what they call their launch window, right? So release in March, you have your big games, whatever they're going to go with. I have my ideas, I'm sure. You have yours. And then the other big titles that aren't there for launch, could they be? Probably, but they're strategically placed in October, November timeframe to maximize on that first holiday. That's when you get them again. So everyone who bought on day one, now they're going back into their wallets and buying again, buying more games, of course, during that November Christmas timeframe. It makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. And I look at another thing. So again, with this being Nintendo's first iterative console, we have to look at who's the king. Who's the king of iterative releases that is not in the console market? And it's Apple.
Yep.
Right. They release an iterative iPhone. And I have an iPhone. I'm not like a super Apple fan. You know, I know there's a lot of super fans out there that buy the iPhone as soon as it comes out and they follow all the news like we do with Nintendo. So I had to look it up. And this year they announced a new iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max on Monday, September 9th. They announced on the 9th that pre-orders will start this Friday, September 13th. So they get you at the beginning of the week. Then comes Friday. They get you again there for the pre-orders. And then a week later, on September 20th, the latest iPhone is in your hands. So literally announced on the 9th, released on the 20th. 11 days. 11-day turn time. Release window for an iterative iPhone. So again, what do we all keep saying about Switch 2? We've all talked about what is it going to be called. We keep hearing Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty certain it will be Switch 2. And with each iPhone, you kind of know what your list of improvements are going to be. With the Switch, I think we know for the most part, sure there will be a surprise or two, but we know it's going to be bigger, better, and more refined in every way. It's going to be able to natively play current next-gen games on the go. Definitely Series S games. PS5, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what the DLSS is going to be able to do. That's one thing I think they'll explain. But we know we're going to be able to get more third-party games, the big ones that we couldn't get with Switch. And we're going to be able to play them natively, not through the cloud. It's going to have better graphics, better performance and resolution and frame rate. It's going to be 4K, most likely on your TV, 1080p in your hands. And it's going to be an 8-inch screen. The Joy-Cons are going to be magnetic. They fixed the Joy-Con drift issue. What's not to like about all of that?
Right.
We're not reinventing the wheel here. So again, if they were ever going to do it, a short announcement to release window, now is the time, the perfect time to try this. Because again, like this isn't something they've done before. But they can certainly try it. They can try it right now. I mean, why not? And the big announcement for Switch 1 in January with the release in March seemed to work really well. I just feel like we don't need that October thing because we know essentially what we're getting.
No question. Yeah. Yeah, and we know that they like Apple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've shown up on stage with Apple, and that's such a great point. Like, and being a numbered system, which is more than likely going to be the case. Why do we need to have a 5-month launch or a 6-month launch versus just we've been talking. They set out right off the bat. This is not going to be their typical console release. Well, if it's not, then a 3-month window is not their typical. And I think when we heard that statement, a lot of our minds went to, the way they're going to do games with what's going to come out on Switch and what's going to come out on Switch 2, and that's going to be our second topic. But I think there's a very real possibility that they may shock all of us and just be like, I mean, we could even see something in December. they could put out the stay tuned for the January direct, you know, with
Yeah, they
with
totally
news.
could. And I also want to bring up too, we have new leadership. You know, the top brass leadership at Nintendo. It's a new president. This is his first console launch. So things can be done differently. And if you were going to emulate any company, any North American company, because again, we have to remember that North America is the biggest market for video games. It is Nintendo's biggest market. So if you want to look at a North American company that does a majority of their sales here in North America, who better to look at outside of the gaming industry than Apple? I mean, if you're going to emulate something that works, and this is a company that has made an absolute killing in iterative releases. Who better than Apple? So it's like the blueprint's there, man. I don't see why they wouldn't. I just don't see why they wouldn't do it. And then I also want to mention again that I completely believe that Switch 2 was internally delayed. I've always have.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% believe that it was planned to come out in 2024. I even believe there's certain Switch games that were most likely built for Switch 2,
We're
and they
looking
end
at
up
you,
releasing them.
Showtime, right? Princess Peach Showtime. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think Thousand Year Door was probably going to be on both consoles.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Brothership, Echoes of Wisdom, and there's some third-party titles as well, that third-party RPGs specifically, which will lead into other things about Switch 2, like if we have the colored buttons or not. But again, some of these games have, colored button schemes that they reference in the game, like in HUD overlays, or some of these games have in their code 4K settings.
Right.
Like, come on. Right? It's there, man. The writing's on the wall. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. It's easy to connect the dots here.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. And I only brought up Princess Peach Showtime because I remember playing it and thinking about the way it was running and going, was this made like all I could think about was Hyrule Warriors on the new 3DS and the regular 3DS and how
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like, I'm getting similar vibes here of like, maybe this wasn't meant for this console. They're squeezing all they can out of it. I believe it was an Unreal 5 game,
Yep.
if I remember correctly. And
You're right.
so I know that engine is probably one of the easiest for them to, dial stuff up and dial it back if they want to get it running on multiple systems.
Yeah, barely. It barely made it on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed that game. Performance was a little rough for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, interesting. Yeah. So I think we're on the same page on most of those points because I think this was the funny thing is I think the delay of Animal Crossing all the way back had a massive snowball effect that we may never fully know. Like, because everything was all like the first 2 years were full steam ahead. And then AC, if I remember correctly, was our first major, like our first delay from them, where it was like 3 months out or whatever compared to when it was supposed to be. And what a crazy turn of events that was. Like their crystal ball was definitely working. That's for sure.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm with you on the I do think the Switch 2 was supposed to be out potentially this year, and then it was delayed internally. So well, right on. Let's go ahead and move on over to our next topic. Okay, well, if Nintendo keeps the Switch 1 warm over the next 2 years with like remakes, what remakes do you think we could see?
So I have a handful of games that I think, and I have some pretty detailed reasons as to why. So let me get into it.
Before you jump into the game, do you think that's the direction they will go to kind of keep limping the Switch 1 along?
Yes, absolutely. I don't really think we're going to be seeing new original content on the Switch 1. I think it's going to be Switch 2. They want everyone to migrate over, but they will continue to feed Switch 1 owners. And I think they're going to need to in order to surpass the PlayStation 2's 160 million sales now. I knew that would happen.
Updated today, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I will say this. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it was PS2 was great at the time. It was a DVD player. It was the cheapest DVD player you could get on the market. And if you live through it, you know, and I know that a lot of people bought a PS2 so they could have a DVD player. We'll never have that again. Physical media is going away eventually, but definitely with the movies. So that's never going to happen again. That was lightning in a bottle. So, with that said, yes, I think we're going to continue to get remakes. The first one, and this game, I knew it, and you probably know which one I'm going to go with, but I knew at the moment that it was not included in the 3D All-Star collection. I just knew there was okay. Yeah, everyone's so mad on the internet. It's like, no, there's a different plan here, guys. It's still coming. It just means it's going to be a standalone release, and they might actually give us some more, which is better, right? I mean, maybe we get a Super Mario 3D World / Bowser's Fury kind of more, right? But there's something more to this one. And so again, I've always said that the reason why it wasn't included in the 3D All-Stars collection for that standalone release, in my opinion, it's the superior Mario Galaxy game. Both phenomenal. Love both.
That's at Thunderstache Gaming, because I know there is an army of people that will fight you to the death. So
Yeah, and that's fine. Hey, look, you gotta remember, I love both games.
I only know because I am in full agreement with you, and I have said it multiple times that I think 2 is the better game.
Yeah, I think 2 is the better for me. And if one's better for you, excellent. At the end of the day, they're both fantastic, fantastic Mario games. That's what
Amazing.
matters.
Yep.
But there's a lot of reasons why. So releasing it as a standalone game in 2025, it also allows Mario and Yoshi to share the spotlight together. Remember, Yoshi is prominently displayed on that box art.
Yep.
He's just as big as Mario, if not bigger. But it's to remind everyone, especially the younger gamers or gamers whose first Nintendo console was the Nintendo Switch, that Mario and Yoshi are like peanut butter and jelly. They truly go hand in hand. And I think Nintendo does that for 2 reasons. One, Yoshi will play a prominent role in the next Mario movie. We saw the end of the movie, so we know that's coming. We know Yoshi's going to be there. I would even bet that Yoshi will be in the trailer, the first trailer for the new Mario movie. So not only will the movie and the game's sales feed off of each other, but I think it also sets the stage for, of course, the next standalone Yoshi game take a huge sales leap thanks to the movie and the game. And I think we have something that we could look at right now, today, that can be viewed very similarly. And I actually just reviewed this game. We look at Sonic X Shadow Generations. The third Sonic movie is going to feature a lot of Shadow.
Yeah.
So Sega says, hey, let's get a game out a few months before the movie to take advantage of all of those marketing dollars that we're going to be spending on the movie, in hopes that we can recoup the marketing costs by releasing this game that is part remaster, Sonic Generations Remastered, right? And then the other part is a new game, which is the Shadow the Hedgehog, Shadow Generations version. Then, with the new game, they have the special Shadow DLC. So there's DLC coming out for this game that's going to include new levels. And it's going to be based on the actual movie, which is a brilliant move. So for people that were maybe not interested in the movie, but they played the game, now they're going to want to go see the movie. And then for people who go see the movie and they ask, "Hey, I wonder, is there a Shadow the Hedgehog video game, or are there only Sonic games?" And Sega already has the answer. They say, "Hey, you know what? Actually, we released a game that has both a full Sonic game that was reviewed really well when it did come out. We remastered it, runs in 4K 60 on the PS5, and then we have a full Shadow game, and it's only $50 for both games." And then, oh yeah, by the way, if you pick it up on Black Friday, you can get it for $30 right now. Total W by Sega. I think the Big N does the same. Additionally, the other part is the first game that Mario and Yoshi appeared in together was, of course, Super Mario World, which released in Japan in 1990. So releasing Mario Galaxy 2 HD would be a way to celebrate Mario and Yoshi's 35th anniversary of being a team, their first team up, their first game together. Super Mario World, who's on the cover? Mario riding Yoshi.
Yep.
Galaxy 2, Mario riding Yoshi. 35 years of it. You got the movie. You already got the marketing dollars being spent over there. I think it could be pretty damn big.
I think they're doing it right now with Donkey Kong. They're hitting us with a new game in January, or a remade game in January. That was a Wii and a 3DS title. They just hit us 2 weeks in a row with Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, right? On NSO.
Yeah.
Like, they're being and then the launch, I think today, IGN tweeted anyway, that like today, I think like essentially like season ticket holders or whatever, if you will, for the park in Japan, had there was like maybe a drawing or something. There was early access given to some of them. So they were in the park today.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I think there's a lot. I would be willing to bet there was a little bit of surprise from what happened with not that they didn't think the Mario movie would sell games or that the movie would do as well as it did, but I think they're seeing so much from the data coming in that they're like, oh, we can really leverage so many of these things. And as you were talking about it, it makes me wonder how many, I don't know that we could ever know this outside of like everybody taking a survey, but how many Wii owners are Switch owners? You know, that maybe they didn't get the Wii U. We know a lot of them didn't get the Wii U, right? There's no question there. But like, I feel like the NES and the Wii, like the Wii was almost like a renaissance in a way where it was like,
yeah, like a revolution.
Yeah, like just the new generation. The amount of younger people that come through my streams that are like, yo, Mario Kart Wii was the first Wii. I'm like, it's actually not. Like,
yeah.
You know, but they look upon it so fondly. And I tell them, was it your first Mario Kart? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's why. And there's nothing wrong with, like, it's not like I have no, I mean, I love Super Mario Kart. Is it a great game now compared to 8 Deluxe? No. It's not. And but there's a hungry generation of gamers that started on the Wii, of Nintendo gamers in particular, that started on the Wii. And I think a Galaxy 2 release, the only thing is I hope they do something to release. I hope it's Galaxy 1 and 2 if they do it again, just so that people have access, because they locked it behind that scarcity tactic. And so it's not easily accessible for Switch owners to play the first one now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think they would be wise to do that.
It's done. It's there.
Yeah, exactly. It's already there.
Mhm.
Just throw it in. I mean, again, Sega just did it with Sonic Generations remastered and Shadow. There's just 2 games right there.
Yeah.
They charge $50 for it. And it's probably gonna sell like crazy now because of the movie. And
Oh.
vice versa. More people are because this game, there's a lot of story elements actually in it for a Sonic game, and a lot of it's about Shadow. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. I haven't. I have 1 and 2. Yeah, I have them. I have 1 and 2. I got them on 4K. I need to watch them. I got them recently, maybe probably earlier this year. But I've played all the games. I'm a big fan. I just didn't go see the movies. I don't know why. And I look at that though, it's like there's such a great opportunity there to capitalize on this story element in the Sonic Shadow game. Because if you see the movie, I'm guessing it's going to have a lot of elements about Shadow and it's going to make you more interested and you're going to want to go see if there's a video game for it. And if you just play the game, like, oh, wow, this Shadow character is really interesting. I want more of that story. Oh, hey, we got a movie. It's just so easy, man. Easy money.
No question. No question. Well, I will throw one out because I just finished it on 2DS or 3DS. Samus Returns.
Yeah. Samus Returns would be great.
Yeah, I'm currently playing Dread, and any fans of Metroid, and even if you're not a fan of Metroid, a little bit of remastering to Samus Returns, maybe even it wouldn't need much. It wouldn't need much, and we know 3DS games are easy to get onto Switch, right? We've seen it with Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter was even cross-platform with 3DS in Japan when Generations came out. And so we know it's not incredibly difficult for that to be a reality. And I think that there is such a vast library of 3DS games to tap into that a lot of my list comes from the handheld, because there's a huge although those systems, the DS sold well, 3DS not as well. There's a huge there's so many Switch owners that have not that came back to gaming.
Yep.
With the Switch, and that did not touch the handhelds, or maybe had a DS but not the 3DS. I think it's such a win for them, such an easy win, because not everybody's a handheld gamer. I had Sunbro on here and he was talking to me. He's like, I didn't really touch handheld. It wasn't really my thing.
That's a big thing, is the difference between the people that are only console gamers and only handheld gamers. There's a lot of people that did not play handheld. Maybe they didn't have time. Maybe they just didn't like playing that way. Whatever the case may be, there's a huge market to tap into there.
Mm.
And I think Nintendo saw with GameCube, right? They're seeing all these GameCube games that came out, 20 years ago, 20 plus, releasing them now to a brand new audience on Switch. And then you also have all the old timers who played these games when they came out and would love to revisit them in a modern way. Because we all know what it's like hooking up a GameCube or a Wii, to a modern day HD TV. You probably don't have composite or component outputs on the back of your TV.
Yep.
And if you think you're going to have a good experience by going on Amazon and picking up a RCA to HDMI converter, sadly mistaken. It's not going to be a good experience, and you won't know you may not even know that it's a horrible experience. Like, you may not know that it should be a lot better than this. It's not going to fill up your whole TV, and it's going to introduce input lag. That's not the way to do it. So Samus Returns to me makes a ton of sense, to circle back to that. I think there's two games that I think without a doubt they have to be ported over to Switch. Samus Returns was one of them. The other is Link Between Worlds. Those games cannot be stuck on the 3DS, on a handheld console. If you release those on Switch with that install base, that is such easy money for what it's going to cost to put the development team together and the advertising dollars, everything that goes into porting a game, the amount of money that you're going to get out of that. And again, it's not just on the one game, because these games really support the entire franchise. So this game might help actually improve the sales of Metroid Prime 4 in a roundabout way, because you're giving your fans more and you're giving them high quality, because we know both of those 3DS games are very high quality. So that makes them super fans now.
Going to Dread after playing Returns, you just see how amazing, but like they both are. But like you almost get the impression that like Miyamoto, when he made Super Mario Brothers and then Mario 3, and then jumping from 3 to World, and how they had the horsepower to be able to do the things that they wish they could have done early on. Like, you just see that Samus Returns probably gave them so many great ideas. They didn't have to come up with the storyline or change too much of the core game, but then they could get creative with power-ups and the way you traverse the world, which was an improvement over the first one, the original Samus 2 or Metroid 2. And then in Dread, it was like, now you've got all like, yeah, I have a whole video I want to do, or maybe a conversation on. We played through Switch games too quickly. we consumed them too fast.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be treasured there. Like, a lot to be treasured there. And so those are fantastic titles. And I played Paper Mario Thousand Year Door yesterday. There's no reason that we shouldn't see more Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario games as potential remakes. Color Splash is never mentioned, and I know it's not like loved by a lot of people, but it's still part of that franchise, and it's still only sitting on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Like, it is one that could potentially make its way as a port to Switch 2 and Switch 1 down the road, and would still have some weight to it. I don't know as much, because again, I know it's kind of I think some people loved it, some people hated it, and so few people really played it that how do you even really get the consensus?
Yeah, it's tough to get the consensus for sure, since it was Wii U. I watched some videos recently, maybe a month ago. I went onto YouTube and I was looking at Paper Mario Color Splash 2024. And of course, I have a handful of videos that came up about whether or not Color Splash is worth playing in 2024.
Mm.
And there are people, channels that have decided to give Color Splash another chance. And I will say that a majority of those videos I watched, they had a completely different opinion about it now.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, time does that, right? Sometimes a game comes out, not a lot of people liked it, or it was a mixed bag, but you revisit it years later and you find out that it was actually a great game. Maybe some big video game website gave a game a bad score.
Yep.
And you decided to skip the game because it got a bad score. But then 10 years down the line, you're like, you know what? I never did play this one. Maybe I should try it anyways. And then you find out it's a great game. That's happened a lot. So I think Color Splash could have a really good opportunity. I think it should too. And I think Paper Mario 64's gotta get a modern day treatment as well. That's a great game. Love the game.
Mm-hmm. No question. No question at all. Do you have any others on your list?
I do. And I 100% believe these games are coming out. Absolutely have to. For so many reasons. That's Metroid Prime 2 and 3. They have to come out.
Yeah.
I've said it many times. You have to release Metroid Prime 2 and 3 prior to releasing 4. Metroid Prime 2 released in 2004. Okay, 20 years ago. Prime 3 released in 2007. Prime 4 will be releasing in 2025. So the first Metroid Prime released in 2022 or 2002. So by the time Prime 4 releases in 2025, the series will have begun 23 years ago, with the last entry in the series, Metroid Prime 3, being 18 years ago. So you already released Prime 1 in 2022 for the 20th anniversary, giving fans plenty of time to pick up Prime 1 and lay that new foundation for the series. Like, think about all the Switch owners that had never played the Prime series. And again, I mentioned just a moment ago, but the only way the average gaming consumer is going to be able to play Prime 2, Prime 1 is if you previous to that, if you had a GameCube and you're playing Prime 1 and 2 on your HD TV and it looks terrible and it plays terrible and has input lag, or you own a Wii and you pick up the trilogy for 80 to $100 on eBay and you're still dealing with the same video input issues. So that is not a great way to be able to play Metroid Prime. I don't think that's the way Nintendo wants its fans to be introduced to Metroid Prime. No. And I really think that in order to elevate Metroid into a new stratosphere, the same stratosphere that Mario has lived in since day one, and the one that Zelda, in my opinion, finally entered into, thanks to the runaway success of Breath of the Wild. Now, as far as on a quality level, it was always there, but on a sales level, it entered into that new stratosphere. I think if they want Metroid to get there, which I think they really, really do, they're going to need to pull out all of the marketing stops. And I think the first stop is what they've already done. They released Metroid Prime 1 remastered, and they only charged $40 for it. And that's a big thing that I think people miss, is that a lot of Nintendo fans were upset when other Nintendo remakes released on the Switch for $60. They're like, why are they doing this? Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Donkey Kong Country Returns coming out next year. $60. And it's not because Metroid Prime is a lesser experience or a lesser of a remake. It's because they need you to buy Metroid Prime 1. Because if you buy Prime 1, you are much more likely to buy Prime 2, 3, and 4. If Prime 1 comes out at $60, right? And someone says, that's too much. I heard it's really good from the older Nintendo fans, but I'm just not sure if I'd like it. And I'm not willing to spend $60 when I know there's other games I can pick up that I 100% know I'll like. Maybe I'd pick it up if it was $40 or $50, but I'm not paying full price. So charging only $40 for Prime 1 was Nintendo's way of getting you in, my opinion, to the Metroid Prime ecosystem. So you buy the other 3 games. I think fans of Metroid Prime will now pick up games like Metroid Dread. And fans of Dread will probably go pick up Metroid Prime. We saw the same thing with Pikmin. Pikmin and Metroid have always reviewed very well, but their sales never reflected extremely high review scores. So Prime and Pikmin were both introduced on the GameCube. They both have 4 mainline series titles. With Switch, we got Pikmin 1 plus 2 HD at a lower price. It was not a full price game. Then we got Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And then Pikmin 4. 2 months after Pikmin 4's release, it eclipsed the sales numbers of any of the Pikmin games, all of them. It's the best-selling Pikmin game in its entire franchise history. So you have a blueprint right there that worked, that you yourself did as a company. So if you're Nintendo, you got to go out and do this, right? If like they needed you to buy Prime 1. That's why it was a lesser price. Because if you don't buy Prime 1, how likely are you to go buy Prime 2? If you didn't see Star Wars A New Hope, how likely are you to go see Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi? Right? It's like, you want me to just jump into the second movie? I haven't seen the first one. Shouldn't I see the first one? Well, we have no way for you to see that. You know, you'd have to go get it on VHS if you want to watch it. We never brought it to DVD or Blu-ray. That would be like the same thing with Metroid Prime. It's like, yeah, we have the first one, but you know, if you want to go play 2 and 3, you're gonna have to go buy a GameCube and Prime 2, or you can buy a Wii and then you know, go on eBay and try to get Prime Trilogy for $80-100. That's not the answer. So those 2 are coming out. I guarantee it.
Do you think, I mean, everybody, I've been doing a little searching in the background here. Do you think Game Awards is a Metroid Prime 2 announcement?
Yeah. So here, 2 things that go together with that. One of them being just a few days ago, right? I'm on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I see Wario 64.
I know where you're going.
Yeah. Wario just posted it. It said like 31 seconds.
Yeah.
I usually don't catch his tweets that quick.
Right.
But it was this beautiful, you know, hardback Metroid Prime book of all the history and the art and just all the lore of Metroid Prime. It's done by Piggyback, who they make some good books. Nintendo's got to deal with them, from what I've gathered, from what I heard. I know they did a Tears of the Kingdom, you know, big guidebook. Actually, I have it.
Is that the one that leaked?
Yeah, and I got it for the maps. I love playing the Zelda games with a map. I think I've mentioned that before. I really like that, and I don't love pausing and figuring out everywhere. I kind of just like looking at an old school map. It's kind of fun. It's a different type of challenge, but really good high quality books. Let me ask you, why would you be coming out with a book here in 2000 or announcing in 2024? This was for the pre-order. It's coming out in 2025.
Yeah.
Early. Why? Why are you priming us, so to speak, for the Metroid Prime trilogy? Why do you want us to know about all 3 of these games? Well, yeah, we know 4's coming out. But what, do you just expect us to buy this book and read about 2 and 3? No. It's going to be a way to play 2 and 3. Game Awards, to me, makes a lot of sense because it allows Nintendo to remind everyone about Prime 4 coming out. So even if they don't show anything about Prime 4, which I'm not expecting, but it could certainly happen, but you're still getting a Metroid announcement, which I think is a big deal. And I think February makes a lot of sense because that is the open spot on the calendar. If Switch 2 is coming out in March, that would make sense. You know, Nintendo did do the same thing with Pikmin. I mean, they announced Metroid Prime 1 remastered, and then it was available later that day.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to buy it retail, physically, it was coming out in like a month or two.
Yep.
Pikmin 1 plus 2, same thing. You can play it right now, or if you want the physical, it'll come out shortly thereafter. So the original, going way back, the original rumor, right, was Metroid Prime 2 and 3 would be packed together most likely. That was the original like basis of the rumor.
Yeah. This is like Jeff Grubb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just way back when kind of rumor, it was said that they would be together. Now, recently I've heard that they're actually going to be separate, maybe. I've heard different things. Either way, though, I'm expecting both games to come out. However they come out, to be determined. We'll see. Is it going to be simple HD? Is it going to be full remaster like Metroid Prime 1? All I know is Nintendo's going to make those games playable. They have to. If they want Prime 4 to really reach its sales potential, they have to pull out all the marketing stops. That is a good way to do it. Hey, we're going to give you 2 and 3 for the price of 1. For the price of 1 game.
Yeah.
That's how you get people to buy Prime 4.
The Super Metroid fan inside of me really hopes we get the whole treatment and not, because I remember back on the GameCube days when Resident Evil 1 came out and then 0, and then they just slapped the other ones on, and I didn't go for. I'm like,
Yeah.
how can you expect me to go from that amazing, like those graphics that were like unreal,
Yeah.
to then just essentially a port, like with updated controls, I'm sure, on as far as Metroid goes. The Game Awards make so much sense to me for one particular reason. Is Metroid to me is a niche audience. It feels like a little bit more of a hardcore fan base versus just a casual fan base.
100.
And all eyes that are at the Game Awards are going to be, they're not going to lean nearly as casual. And I think that's a good spot for them to say, oh, and out now as our December release is Metroid Prime 2 Remastered. And then February, there's a physical. And it gives the devs even more time to let Metroid Prime 4 cook, which I think is like, especially if it's going to end up launching both systems. Like, unless it's if it's a launch day game. But I've always kind of been on the, I don't know that it's coming to the OG Switch.
Yeah. I don't know if it is either. I really don't. But whether it does or doesn't, I don't know that I'm sold that it would be a launch game. Like a launch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to, I don't see it as a system seller.
No.
And I think if you have it as a launch day title, it gets passed up for other games by
Right.
both Nintendo and third parties because they're going to be bringing it for launch. Because Nintendo, in my opinion, prepped all the third parties a long time ago to have your games ready for a 2024 release.
Yeah.
And then the internal delay happened, which means when it does launch, there's going to be even more games. So games that maybe would have missed the original launch are now going to make it. So that is not a good time for Prime. I think Prime would be good for sometime between this summer and the fall. I think it's still a launch window game. I just don't see it coming out of launch at all. So I think you have time to get 2 and 3 out properly.
For sure. I mean, absolute worst case scenario, put it in the place of where ARMS was on the OG Switch.
Yeah.
Where it was just a couple months and that was a brand new IP, like, yeah, I think and again, let it cook, give it the time it needs. Like, I know it's been a long time. It's been 7 years or whatever, but like, I so bad just want people to play Metroid. Like
I know.
I can't. I don't. I'm so hooked on that series right now. Like I'm just so hooked on it, and it top 5 game of all time. Super Metroid for me. So
Yeah,
it's
I love Super Metroid. I played Metroid earlier this year. I did a video on my channel. I played at the unofficial port of Metroid
mm,
1 to Super Nintendo.
interesting.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's got a fully orchestrated soundtrack.
Hmm.
The NES game. It's got an overworld map.
Oh
It's
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's really cool. It's if I would say for anyone who wants to experience Metroid 1 in its original vision, so not Metroid Zero Mission, because that's the best way to play it, right?
Sure.
Zero Mission. But if you want to play what the original Metroid is, that is the best way to play it
Hmm.
because you get fully orchestrated soundtrack and you get an overworld map, which is super clutch.
Oh, it's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we're at that hour mark. I think it's good to put a bow on this thing. Let people know where they can connect with you.
Yeah. So you guys can find me on YouTube at Thunderstache Gaming. And I do video game reviews there, new and retro games. I review games from all consoles. So Nintendo, of course, Switch, PS5, occasionally some Xbox. I will be reviewing Indiana Jones. I love me some Indiana Jones, big fan. So definitely be playing that game and reviewing it. But I also review a lot of old school games, regular Nintendo, Super, 64. I have the analog 3D pre-ordered. So when that baby comes out, I cannot wait to play a 64 on, on a modern HD TV
Right. Yeah.
in full screen with a better resolution. Because if any console needs, their visuals improved a little bit, it's the 64.
No doubt. No
But that's
doubt.
where you can find me. I'm also on social media, of course, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I would say I'm most active on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Thunderstache _ YT for YouTube.
Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.